This is Malta. To the tourists, it's a Mediterranean jewel. Ancient fortresses, blue lagoons, a place to disappear for a week of sun. But for the global elite, Malta isn't just a holiday destination, it is a vault. For decades, this tiny island nation has punched arguably too far above its weight, positioning itself as the European Union's most controversial financial backdoor. While the rest of Europe demands high taxes and strict compliance, Malta built an empire on a simple promise: bring your money here and we will treat you differently. To understand how this works, you have to look past the postcards and into the ledger books. On paper, Malta's corporate tax rate sounds painfully high, 35%. That is one of the highest statutory rates in Europe. If you just glanced at the headline number, you'd think this is the last place a corporation would want to set up shop. But that number is a mirage. It is the first layer of a very lucrative illusion. Malta operates what is called a full imputation system. Here is the reality. A foreign company sets up a subsidiary in Valletta. They pay that 35% tax. But then, the Maltese government does something extraordinary. They give almost all of it back. Within weeks, the tax authorities issue a refund to the shareholders. Usually this refund amounts to 6/7 of the tax paid. Do the math, 35% goes in, 6/7 comes back out. The effective tax rate drops to exactly 5%. 5%. In the European Union, this isn't a loophole. This isn't an accounting error. This is the product. This is the system designed explicitly to attract foreign capital. For a company making millions in profit, the difference between paying 25% in France or Germany and 5% in Malta is not just a saving, it is a fortune. And because Malta is a full member of the EU, that money is now clean, compliant, and inside the European single market. It is brilliant, and to Brussels, it is infuriating. For years, this system turned the island into a magnet for digital nomads, gaming companies, and shell corporations. But the tax system was only one head of the hydra. If you were wealthy enough, you didn't just want a lower tax bill. You wanted the ultimate status symbol. You wanted access. You wanted a passport. Until very recently, Malta was one of the few places on Earth where you could effectively walk into a government office with a checkbook and walk out a European citizen. They called it the Individual Investor Program. The world called it Golden Passports. The premise was transactional and cold. Pay a certain amount, around €1 million in total contributions and property investments, pass a due diligence check, and you became Maltese. But you didn't become Maltese because you loved the history or the culture. You became Maltese because it gave you the keys to the entire European continent. A Maltese passport means visa-free travel to over 180 countries. It means the right to live in Paris, work in Berlin, or bank in Zurich. For a Russian oligarch, a Chinese billionaire, or a Saudi tycoon, that little red booklet was the ultimate insurance policy. It was a get-out-of-jail-free card, wrapped in EU sovereignty, and business was booming. Since 2014, this program pumped over €1 billion into the Maltese economy. Construction cranes filled the skyline. Luxury apartments sold before they were built. The government argued this was legitimate foreign direct investment. They used the money to fund healthcare, housing, and social programs. They claimed they were selling a premium product to premium clients. But the European Union saw something very different. They saw a security risk. They saw a backdoor that had been left wide open, and they decided it was time to slam it shut. The pressure had been building for years. Brussels does not have an army, but it has lawyers, and it has patience. The European Commission argued that citizenship is not a commodity. It is a relationship between a state and its people. You cannot buy loyalty. You cannot invoice patriotism. They argued that selling EU citizenship to someone who had never lived in Europe, who didn't speak the language, and who had no genuine link to the country was a violation of EU law. Malta fought back. They argued that deciding who becomes a citizen is the sovereign right of every independent nation, and technically, they were right. But the political wind was shifting, the scrutiny intensified. Then came the list. The Financial Action Task Force, the global money laundering watchdog, placed Malta on its gray list in 2021. This was a humiliation. Malta was the first EU member state to land on that list, sitting alongside countries like Syria and Zimbabwe. It signaled to the world that Malta's financial plumbing was leaking. Banks de-risked. Compliance costs skyrocketed. The island scrambled to clean up its act, reforming its regulators and tightening its laws. They managed to get off the gray list a year later, but the reputation damage was done. The spotlight was now fixed on Valletta, and finally, the hammer dropped on the golden passports. In April 2025, the European Court of Justice delivered the fatal blow. The court ruled that Malta's citizenship by investment scheme was illegal. The verdict was clear. You cannot grant citizenship without a genuine link to the country. Writing a check is not a link. The program that had generated over €1 billion was effectively dead. The 2025 ban wasn't just a policy change, it was an eviction notice for the passport brokers. Malta had to officially dismantle the scheme, the exceptional services by direct investment route. The fancy name for buying a passport was closed. For the oligarchs looking for a quick entry into Europe, the door is now locked. But money, like water, always finds a crack. While the passports are gone, the tax system remains complicated. Remember that 5% effective rate? The global financial landscape is shifting there too. The OECD's global minimum tax, Pillar 2, is forcing countries to ensure big corporations pay at least 15%. Malta sees the writing on the wall. They are adapting. They are introducing new rules, optional regimes where companies might pay a flat 15% to avoid getting taxed again back home. The game is moving from tax haven to tax efficient. It's a subtle shift, but a critical one. The era of the Wild West Mediterranean is fading. But don't mistake regulation for defeat. Malta is resilient. They are pivoting to new industries, blockchain, AI, high-end financial services. They are trying to attract talent, not just wallets. The narrative is changing from buy a passport to build a business. But the legacy of the backdoor years lingers. The story of Malta is the story of modern globalization. It is the struggle between national sovereignty and international rules, between the desire for easy capital and the demand for moral integrity. For a decade, Malta sold a dream. To the wealthy, it sold freedom. To its own people, it sold prosperity. But the price of that prosperity was scrutiny. The golden goose has been cooked by the European courts. The passports are off the table. The tax loopholes are tightening. Malta is being forced to grow up. The island remains a financial hub, a critical player in the Eurozone. But the days of the open back door are over. Now, if you want to get in, you might actually have to knock. And more importantly, you might actually have to stay.